In a stunning twist that I and literally everybody else predicted, Xavi has decided to stay at Barcelona. And this is a really interesting turn because the person that seemed most adamant in the world that they would not be the coach of Barcelona next year was Xavi. I mean, he came out and said repeatedly that he was going to not be the coach. He was even starting to convince me because he came out in January and said that he was not going to coach Barcelona anymore. It was after a bad loss to Villarreal. Team was sputtering, injuries, and he was getting a lot of pressure from the media. And he basically took all that pressure and said, if you don't want me, I won't stay. And that kind of turned their attitude around real quick. And ever since then, there's been a real feeling that Barcelona was trying to win him back over. Barcelona was not really the same way that Bayern is exploring options around who to get as a new manager. They were sticking with Xavi. And I got to be honest, even when Xavi was starting his managing career in the Middle East, he always looked like the type of guy that would step in at Barcelona and be there for 10 to 15 years and really build something. He understands the culture of the place. This is the dream team for him to always be coaching. I mean, Xavi is Barcelona. Dude came through the academy and was part of arguably the best Barcelona team of all time, right? Certainly the best Barcelona midfield trio of all time. So he was the perfect person to come in and lead this. And when he said that he was leaving in January, it felt like he was copying Jurgen Klopp's flow. Let's be honest. This was a few days after Jurgen Klopp. He copied him bar for bar, word for word. He knew exactly what reaction Jurgen Klopp had got, and he decided to kind of drop in the same thing. And even though Xavi had engineered a league-winning run with Barcelona, he didn't get necessarily the same reaction, except from the board. The board was absolutely dedicated to trying to get him back. And I was sure that Xavi was going to come back. Until fairly recently when Xavi was asked again about staying and he said basically no, never. I'm not, I think it was after El Clasico, or it might have been after the Champions League match or whatever, where or earlier in midweek, he said he just wasn't going to come back. But that all changed in the last 24 hours, and Fabrizio Romano was on the case. So you know the end result, but here's how we got here. First, Fabrizio Romano tweeted this. He tweeted, after internal talks today, Xavi and Barcelona have still no agreement to continue together. This is after a few days ago, Laporta and the other people in charge at Barcelona were talking about how they were still enthusiastic that Xavi was going to be the coach. They were going to keep trying to convince him. And the impression that I got from this is that they were putting on a particularly hard push. Laporta insists to keep him, but remains strong possibility for Xavi to leave the club at the end of the season, with Barca now considering other candidates. Final decision soon, with what Fabrizio followed up with a counterpunch. Laporta, Deco, and Xavi, with Barca board members Echeverria and Yuste, are all meeting at the president's house tonight in Barcelona. It happens after face-to-face meeting between Xavi and Deco. Crucial meeting to decide Xavi's future after Laporta insisted on managers' doubts. You had Laporta, you had Deco, they were both so enthusiastic about keeping Xavi that they end up creating a meeting. They went to Laporta's house to actually hash it out. And to be honest, once I read this tweet, I knew what was going down tonight. Then an hour later, specifically 68 minutes later, he tweeted, breaking, Xavi has decided to change his mind and stay as Barcelona manager. Must have been a great meal. There must have been some fantastic braised ossobuco at Laporta's place. After tonight's meeting, Laporta insisting for him to stay. Xavi accepts Barca's conditions and will continue as the head coach. So what happened in this meeting that finally took Xavi from stubbornly saying he wanted to leave because he just felt like he couldn't handle it anymore and he wanted the club to go to another direction, to now Xavi seems back on the rails for continuing what looks to be a very long-term project, building up Barcelona? Well, for that, we turn to an article by The Guardian. Close. Now, Rafa Yuste was apparently also involved in this. He's the Barcelona vice president, and he said Xavi will stay. He's really happy and excited. We've never opened talks for any other coach. Deco trusts Xavi. It's guaranteed. So there seems to have been a lot of brouhahaing and trust and faith exchanged that has overridden Xavi's fear of what the intense pressure around the job. I mean, Xavi at one point said that he believed the job of managing Barcelona was impossible based off of the expectations that were placed on him. So what it sounds like happened is that there was such a strong expression of support in a plan laid out, an action plan that satisfied whatever Xavi wants, however long Xavi wants to be here, however much money he wants, and whichever players he wants, right? Even though Barcelona has financial problems, we know they're going to try and spend anyways. All of those must have been satisfied in this meeting. In this meeting, Xavi has become the king of Barcelona, right? He is going to be the person that is ultimately held responsible for what happens to Barcelona from this point forward, because anytime that you hold the feet over the, you hold the director's feet over the fire for months, trying to win you back, trying to woo you and make you swoon and like serve you the really nice braised asabuco. Xavi's the guy. Now, Xavi runs the show. I mean, short of the entire government in France trying to win back Kylian Mbappe, I haven't seen anybody else in the world of football work this hard to try and retain somebody. But I will say, I agree with Laporta here. I think Xavi's a great choice. I think his announcement was emotional. Obviously I'm not in the room. I don't know Xavi, but I think, he definitely seems to be at a higher pitch of emotion than normal this entire season with the way he's been handling his press conferences recently. I thought the whole thing in January when it happened was emotional. It was what a lot of people hoped that they would have the opportunity to do in their life. That when it all gets too much, they just go, you know what? I'm quitting. And still have financial stability and all that, which obviously Xavi was going to have. And it all just got a little too much. A 5-3 loss to Villarreal in January, everybody dogpiling on you, discord and injury in the team. And it was time to get out. But now it's time to get back in. The real irony of this whole thing is he's actually getting back in and returning as the manager for Barcelona next season officially. Well, not officially. They haven't fully announced it yet. But Fabrizio and The Guardian are talking about it, and they're not the only ones. It seems pretty set in stone. This is coming after their first loss in the league since the Villarreal match in January, which is kind of funny. Now, obviously, if you ask anybody in that room at that dinner about whether that should have been a loss, that's a whole other question with the goal line technology and the penalty call and everything else. But it was their first loss since Villarreal, and they obviously also just got knocked out of the Champions League. And so Barcelona kind of has a bit of a coast into the end of the season, and that is going to be now prep for next season for Xavi. Now, Xavi's contract runs till the end of next season. There's no word in any of the reporting that I can find that his contract is extended, although I would be absolutely stunned if those discussions weren't a part of this dinner. I would be completely stunned if Xavi came back for just one more year and then ended up gone. I mean, crazy things have happened at Barcelona recently, but that seems particularly crazy. Xavi, Deco, this Rafa Yuste guy, they all seem to be dead set on Xavi. I think he's the right coach for Barcelona. And the most important thing is now Xavi seems to think that he is once again the right coach for Barcelona. So Barcelona might just be headed in the right direction from this point. I think with the young core that they have, with somebody like Xavi leading them, there could be something special on tap in the long term. But there is some danger brewing on the horizon, because although I'm not going to make a whole Zealandism about this, reports are coming out of Paris that with Kylian Mbappe leaving allegedly at the end of the season, that Lamine Yamal is now the new target. Well, don't worry, it's not a release clause situation. His release clause is $1 billion, and I'm pretty sure that would run afoul of FFP if PSG happened to trigger a $1 billion release clause. But the rumors blowing around Paris are that over $200 million could be involved in the transfer for a kid who's going to turn 17 next season. So if Barcelona is actually going to do this thing, I would imagine at least part of this conversation was making sure Lamine Yamal is on side and going to be a part of the project at Barcelona and not a part of the project in Paris. But from the sound of things, PSG has a lot of money to fire off in terms of its FFP, and they're going to look to fire it towards Barcelona. Now, if I'm actually thinking about it financially, might not be the worst thing in the world for Barcelona to take that deal. That would solve a lot of financial problems that Barcelona has. But look, it would be also very painful to give away the convincingly, by some margin, best wonder kid in the world right now. So I get it. I understand why Barcelona would try to hang on to it. But that, solve your financial problems, tough decisions. I'm probably keeping Lamine. And that is definitely what they talked about at this dinner. At least over the dessert. The Asabuco was the contract and, making sure that he had full support. The dessert, we're keeping Lamine Yamal. That's what happened.